Hi everybody, today we're going to go over how to create a design to export to a laser cutter and engraver using Corel Draw. First of all, open the program up. My workspace is set to X6 inspired. The only difference is really going to be where certain things are at in the workspace window. It seems like X6 inspired and default are pretty closely related. Light is going to have things in a different places. You can either work around it by figuring out where things are or change your workspace to be similar to mine. Let's go to get started. Create a new document. The new document is going to be called the Tucker Speed Hat Patch. For this, I'm going to leave it in inches. And my artboard, I'm just going to set up to be 10 inches by 10 inches. You can set it to whatever size you like. I just prefer to work with this size because it's about the same size as a typical shirt design or a sheet of paper. Primary color mode, I plan on using this for print or exporting to a cutter. So I'm going to leave it in CMYK. Some lasers like RGB, but usually CMYK is for print, RGB is for exporting to a screen such as your iPod screen or computer screen. Rendering resolution, I'm going to leave that at 150 dots per inch. I'm not doing any artwork that really requires higher than that today. So we'll go OK. Just real quick, let's locate a few things we're going to be using throughout this process. I'm going to be using the pick tool. I'm going to be using the rectangle tool and a contour tool, which you're not going to see on this menu. If you notice that some of these items have a little white arrow in the bottom right corner. That means that if you click and hold on it, it's going to bring a drop-down menu. My contour is right here, so I click and hold, and then when I get to what I want, I release, and it changed that for me. So let's get started. This particular patch, I'm going to do a rounded rectangle, and I want it to be about that shape. I'm going to go back to my pick tool, and it's going to tell me what my dimensions are on this patch. So that's a 6-inch patch. So that's a little bit bigger than what I really need. But I want it to be 6 inches by 2.5 exactly. So I'm going to click this. Right now it's locked. If I adjust one of these, it's going to affect this one. It's going to keep this proportion. So I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to change this to 6 inches. And then I'm going to change this one to 2.5 inches. And now I'm going to lock it so it keeps that proportion. The next thing I'm going to do is round these corners, and the way I do that is I select the object and I come up here to this tool called the shape tool. If it's not there, click and hold and find it, but usually that's the one on top. Then I'm going to come to a corner, I click and hold, and then I drag. And this allows me to edit the beveling. And I'd say about right there looks right. So now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this object so it fits my window here. To do that, I'm going to press the letter Z, or you can click on this magnifying glass right here. And you can click in with your left, which zooms in, or click right, which will zoom out. But what I prefer to do is click and drag over the object I want to zoom in on. It's a really nice feature. I'm going to go back to my pick tool and select this. And I need to create a path for my stitches to sit on. And the way I'm going to do that is using the contour tool. Go ahead and click that. And I want to do an inside contour. You can do outside contours as well, but I want the stitches on the inside of the patch, not the outside. So going off of just kind of eyeballing it, looks like about 0.13 will be good for me. So what I need now is I need to be able to access this path by itself. So I need to break this path apart. In Corel, these are called in Corel these are called contours. In Illustrator, they're called paths. So if you hear me refer to them as a path, that's why I'm more familiar with Illustrator. But I'm doing this tutorial because I feel like there aren't enough good tutorials on the Corel software. So to break these contours apart, you can right click and it'll bring up this menu. You can click break group apart, or you can press Ctrl K. I would suggest getting used to using these shortcut keys. They are going to save a lot of time, especially when you get a little bit more advanced, and they might seem daunting to learn now, but it will become second nature. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to click break apart. So I'm going to click outside the object and make sure that it's apart. So I'm going to click this inner one, and I'm going to drag it, and as you can tell, they're separated from each other. Now to get them back centered, I can either undo what I did by pressing Ctrl Z, or let's say I couldn't do that, or didn't want to do that, or if I had some other circumstance where that wasn't a good option, I could select both items. I click on one, hold shift, select the other, and then I'm going to press the letter C as in cat, which is going to center it horizontally, and then I'm going to press the letter E, which is going to center it vertically. You can do that with all sorts of shapes and text, and it's really handy. So now I need to create a stitch hole pattern that's going to run this length. If I had a patch like this, I probably wouldn't do this approach normally. I would probably just create a pattern of circles and distribute them evenly. But a lot of times your stitches aren't going to be on a perfect rectangle. So I'm going to show you a method that will work for all shapes. I'm going to go over to my ellipse tool, select it, and I'm going to create an ellipse. You notice it's not perfectly round, and even if I'm careful, I still can't get it quite perfect. The way around this is to hold Control as you drag, which, as you watch, it'll snap it to a perfect circle. I'm going to leave it bigger than I need for right now. Go back to my pick tool, make sure this is selected, and then up here is where I'm going to make my adjustment for my stitch. For this particular stitch, I want it to be 1/16 of an inch. And since I have this lock button on, it's going to constrain this to be a perfect circle, and it's going to adjust this to be 1/16 as well. So now I want to fit these circles along this path. And to get to that, I already have mine selected, but I'll pretend you don't. Mine is under arrange. Depending on what your workspace is set up, it might be under a different menu. So if you go to arrange, fit objects to path, it's going to bring up this nice menu. You click the object you want to put around the path or contour first, and then you select the contour holding shift. And then it's going to ask you how many duplicates you want along that path. For this particular path, we'll try 40 of these holes. Go down, hit apply. Those are spread out a little bit farther than I would like, so I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo. You can also go to Edit, Undo, and I'm going to change this to 45 stitches. And that looks better. So now I'm just going to get rid of this path because I don't need it, or this contour. I should get used to saying that. So in order to be able to deal with this in the best way possible, let's make all these holes in this cut path all one big object or one big path. So to do that, I'm going to press Control A, which means select everything. And then I'm going to right click and click Group Objects. You can also press Control G. Now this should be one solid piece, and it is. So this is going to be what the laser sees as what it needs to cut. And you can figure this in your cutting software. So now I want to go ahead and place what I want to engrave on this patch, and I've already got a file prepared of one of my other designs. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to press Control A for Control All, and then Control C to copy. Go back into this, Control V to paste it. It's a little bit big, so I'm going to come up to this corner, scale it. Now Control A, now that's trick to align that I taught you earlier. I'm going to press the letter C, then the letter E, which is going to center it right where I want it. And there you have it. And when you export this to your software for your laser engraver, you will tell it that you want to engrave this object and that you want to cut this object. Thanks.